Welcome to the Spirits, Angels, and Guides Oh My podcast.
Where the supernatural gets real, baby.
Hey everyone, welcome to our podcast. I'm Nancy Christine Brady.
I'm Tara Diana.
And today we are going to talk about connecting with your higher self. So I want to start this conversation a little bit differently because it's one of those topics that people hear all the time, your higher self. But when you actually sit with it, there's a lot of confusion around what it could actually mean. And one of the things I see, especially with developing intuitives and mediums, is that people are trying to connect with something they believe is separate from themselves or somewhere far away, or even something they haven't reached yet.
It's almost like it gets placed up there somewhere. Like, where is that? Like, it's something you have to access instead of something you're already in a relationship with.
Exactly. And there's actually a really interesting perspective that comes up a lot in mediumship. And I want to bring this in gently, which is the idea that your higher self or your higher soul is part of you that remains on the other side in heaven or whatever you want to call it, while the portion of you comes here in incarnation. Now, I want to be really clear. This is a framework. I don't want to traumatize people thinking that they're separated from something. It's a way of
No trauma.
understanding that's actually no trauma. It's something that's actually very, very complex. But it can also be helpful for people when they're trying to make sense of the experiences.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So within that framework, you can think of your higher self as the full expression of your soul,
Hmm.
the part of you that isn't limited by the body, time, or by the human experience. And then the version of you that's here, that's your personality, your body, your lived experience, focused expression that's part of a larger consciousness. So it's not separate, it's not disconnected, but it's localized.
So instead of thinking my higher self is somewhere else, it's more like I'm a part of something larger that I'm still connected to.
Exactly. And this is where it becomes really grounding because you're not trying to reach something outside of you. You're learning how to align with the part of you that already sees more clearly.
Mm.
So, how does this show up in mediumship? Well, this sort of, we'll call it a model, also explains something that a lot of mediums experience. So, there's moments where you receive guidance and it feels incredibly clear, calm, almost complete. And there's no questioning it, there's no emotional charge, just clarity. And then there's other moments where you're in your human and your human experience is thinking, it's processing, it's reacting. And what you're noticing in those moments is the difference between the incarnated perspective and the soul level perspective.
And the soul level perspective shouldn't and doesn't feel rushed.
Exactly. It doesn't. It's not trying to fix anything. It's not trying to get you somewhere faster. It's not trying to remove your experience. It simply just holds a wider view.
Mm-hmm.
So, right, and I really want people to understand you're not split. Okay, you're not split apart. You're in a relationship, and I really want to be careful here, Tara, because I don't want people to hear this and think, "Oh my God, I'm split in two." No, 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 you're not divided. You're not missing a piece of yourself. You're in a relationship with a broader aspect of your own consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that mediumship, right? And that mediumship development and intuitive development, it's really about learning how to work with that relationship.
So again, it's not about becoming more spiritual. Aha! It's about becoming more aligned.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
about it becoming
exactly.
more aligned.
That's exactly. And you're not trying to become your higher self. You're learning how to listen to it, to recognize it, to integrate it into your day to day life. So, Tara, let's talk a little bit about how your higher self communicates, all right? When you understand your higher self in this way, kind of as a broader, non reactive aspect of your own soul, the way it communicates starts to make a lot more sense. It doesn't overwhelm you with information, it doesn't interfere with your choices. It doesn't take away your human experience. And that's really important. You're always going to hear Tara and I say, we're soul having a human experience. Instead, what your higher self is doing is it's offering clarity, it's offering perspective, it's offering alignment. And then it lets you choose.
And I feel like that's respectful, right? It feels like there's a lot of respect in
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It's kind of similar to when you and I talk about spirit guides. They're never going to intervene unless we ask them for help, right? And your higher self isn't here to override your life. It's here to support you. It's and support your experience as you're living it, right? So, when we talk about working with your higher self, we're not talking about reaching upward or trying to connect to something further away. We're talking about creating the conditions where the clarity is going to easily come forward. And that can often look like slowing down, stepping out of a sense of urgency, noticing when you're in reaction mode, and just allowing space before you respond. Because your higher self doesn't compete with the noise. It becomes clear when the noise settles.
So it's less about asking more questions and more about becoming more available.
Exactly. Exactly. So, a little integrated mini practice here, and then I'd love to kind of deepen the conversation with you and talk about some higher self work that you've done, Tara. But let's give people something simple that they can actually work with instead of just saying, well, what should I do? I want you just to try this. And it's really this simple because we're always looking for complicated, over ritualistic things to do. All you really need to do is pause, take a breath, and say, what does this look like from a higher perspective? And then stop. Don't analyze it. Don't go looking for deeper meaning or anything. Just notice what's coming in and what's settling, because it's that shift from reaction to perspective where your higher self is, that voice is going to become accessible.
Nice.
So before we close out, I wanted to sort of talk with you. What's your opinion on higher self work, Tara?
Oh, we do like in my world we do lots of higher self work because in my space you can't go on to do intuitive and mediumship for other people until you kind of get your house in order. And there's something I talk about in my mentorships called trusting the process. I'm sure you've all heard that said before by Nan and I, but trusting the process is legitimately being able to coexist consciously with your higher self, your soul self, whatever you want to call it. Because when you are able to trust the process, what you're actually saying is, I recognize and I understand that I am receiving the information not only from spirit, from the higher evolved energies above, but also from my own higher evolved self. I am get the information that's coming down. Now, we have to work on that because we are conditioned to sit in other people's excuse me, behavioral patterns, thought patterns, etc., etc. So when people come and they're like, oh, you're going to see this, Nan, I'm sure you understand this just as well as I do. A lot of people will come to Nan and I not necessarily looking for loved ones on the other side. They will come and be like, I'm lost. I don't know what my purpose is. I feel like something's missing, right?
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
like 3 sentences that come up consistently. And I always say, first thing I say is, oh, boo, you're not lost. You're feeling all the feels, but you're not lost. And then I say, but I can't tell you what your purpose is. I can't tell you the missing piece per se, but I can give you the tools to allow you to open up, to start trusting a process. And remember, that's empowering you. That is literally saying, hey, baby, you don't have to be a medium. You don't have to be intuitive, even though you already are. You don't have to practice that. You can literally learn how to communicate with your higher self, and that will set you up for success all day, every day, because your higher self is valid. It's there. And it's just like any other kind of spiritual I don't know, forte, right? It is the literal trusting the process that your higher self is going to work with you, period, hard stop, like unconditionally.
Yeah. And I'm the same as you. I'll first get people reconnecting with their higher self. Now, are you from the school of thought? Because I've heard different things. I've heard when people come to me, not everyone believes in past lives and reincarnation, but I was always taught that my higher self was sort of my master soul, and a piece of it comes down and it is resides within me, and we could even have parallel lives going on with little pieces of the soul from the higher self. What are your thoughts around that?
I've never gone deep like that. What I believe is that every time we reincarnate because we have something more to learn. We haven't learned whatever it is. We haven't learned enough to ascend to never come back down, right? And so when you come back
Yeah.
down, yeah, you are right. I agree with you. We leave a portion of us up there that's kind of like just waiting. So that's like when people always say to me, well, if you reincarnate or if they've reincarnated, like how am I going to see them when I go up there? Well, there's always a piece of you up there. And when
Right.
your loved one goes up there, that's who they're going to see. And they'll recognize it from that space,
Yeah.
you from that life, etc., etc. So down here, this is your human experience. Your soul experience stays up there and works with you. Um, Nan, I'll be the first one to say this. I love the idea of multidimensional work. I know I can travel into different spaces, but I don't do any of the deeper research into that because I am lazy as hell and I just trust spirit. So when I go to like a different realm, like a fey realm, if you will, or whatever. I'm just trusting the experience. I'm not looking for the reason for it, the how to, how did I do it? Like when people say to me, "How do you have to astral travel?" I don't know. It just happens. Like no one gave me the how to booklet, the guide on how to do it. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting because I know just for myself, like you know that I do a lot of work in the Akashic, and it just sort of came up very naturally as animals were telling me about their life lessons that they were incarnating to do. And it was this beautiful story about how, you know, it's not just us people that are incarnating and have these lessons, it's animals that are coming and helping teach us tandemly different parts of those lessons. That I really started kind of deep diving into the the soul work and learning more about that. And I find it just fascinating. Of course, any of you who have listened to our podcast for a long time know that I'm the one who deep dives in all the books, and Tara says go deep dive in the books.
I'll be over here with my bunny. I will say something though. You brought up the Akashic records, and maybe the right place, maybe not the right place. But one of the things that I'm really stepping into in my work with other people is simplistic spiritual and metaphysical work. So you were talking about the Akashic records, and one of the things that I've never, and I don't know how you do your Akashic records per se, but people teach these big courses and these attunements that go with it and all these things. And there was a point where I actually wondered what the fluff was going on with me because I didn't need any of that. Like, I trusted that if Archangel, Metatron, and I were about to go dallying through the, library of souls together, then so shall it be. And I might use a door to get into it. I understand how to take people to the Akashic records. No problem. I can teach that portion. But adding so much extra work to it, like rituals and signage, it just felt it's reason why Reiki has never been my jam is because I'm not shakare this way and that way and whatever. It's never resonated with me. And again, I really had to sit down and Spirit said to me, because you just trust. You are not worried about how you necessarily do the work. You just know you're going to get
Mhm.
there. It's like the same with mediumship, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to interject quickly and answer your question, it was one of those things I didn't even really realize I was in them initially. because the animals were taking me there. And as you know, with animals, there tends to not be a lot of ceremony. And so years ago, that's when I started my deep dive into it. Like, am I doing this wrong? Because I was just there. Like, am I supposed to be opening doors? Am I like, I had a book in my hand and I'm reading it, and I was like, what the heck? So, it was kind of, now as you deepen your work, and you know me, I like to understand the 360-degree view of stuff. So I'm gonna deep dive into it just so I have an understanding of how, Jane on the corner might perceive it versus how I'm doing it. But it is something that also came very naturally and just seemed like it was a part of the animal communication, because
Mm.
literally when I'm communicating with them, I'm going to what I call a soul room, and I meet their soul, their higher soul, their pet parent's soul and higher self, and we're all around a table. And there's a book open on the table, and we sit down, and I ask the animal, what do you want to communicate? And then sometimes they'll show me the book of what they need to know from past lives about what's carried over. Maybe your dog has a fear of water and swimming, and some of that is from trauma in this lifetime. Sometimes it's trauma from a past lifetime. And a lot of people overlook that. They don't think animals are sentient beings, and they don't think that they have the same experiences and life lessons and learnings, but they do.
I find it interesting when we talk about the animals and Akashic records and communicating with animals. And, there is a whole, and this to me, again, we are all over on this subject, but, when you talk about things like, uh, multidimensional movements and things like that, I believe a lot of that has to do with whether you believe or you don't believe, right? Like, what's that
Yes.
saying? You have to see it to believe it. I'm of the opposite. You have to believe it to see it. In at least in the spiritual
Mm.
and metaphysical world, because if you are so ingrained that you have to see it to believe it, then there's a good chance there's thousands of things, millions of things you've missed because you didn't see it, because for whatever reason, not even necessarily believing it, but
Totally. And I think that's where you and I are blessed, because we just leaned into this work blindly with trust, and things started happening. And I'm not discrediting anyone who's done the work and attended all the classes and gone down their learning path in a
no.
very different way at all. I'm just, we're sharing our experiences around this. And yeah, it's an interesting topic. It comes up with a lot of my students around higher self. And I thought, it was a great way to sort of start the structured part of the podcast, and then just have like a back and forth talk about it, because if even if there's one person out there that could say, you know what, I really leaned into how Tara had this experience and how Nancy had this experience, but I needed to do it this way. Well, that's okay. And then maybe there's another person who did the same thing we did and just trusted and jumped in like off a diving board into the pool.
I was gonna say a few seconds ago, it brings me back to teaching mediumship, and following, I mean, I see lots of different practitioners who teach mediumship, and I've been around spiritual churches, and I've been to Stansted, and I've done all the stuff. And the greatest gift for me was not to be so hyper focused on, like, the evidence, right? So evidential mediumship
Right.
is like one of the hardest things. And I have a point to this that kind of connects to what we're talking about. But, evidential mediumship really puts you on the spot because you have to provide evidence that someone can
Hmm.
take. And what I feel does such a huge injustice. First of all, platform work is not for everyone. It's just not. You have to have a certain
No.
kind of backbone to be able to stand there with like 50 sets of eyes on you, all wanting you to connect to their
Yeah.
loved one, right? So you have, there has to be a certain kind of backbone to that. But one of, I think, the biggest failures in terms of how mediumship is taught, and this isn't how I teach it, but how mediumship is taught, is that you want to be focusing on names and anniversaries and dates and this kind of thing. And when I've never focused on that. And I've been doing mediumship on platform 20 years plus. Easy, easy. And I've never focused on that because to me that's not what I'm getting. And I was reading someone drawing people into a class, and they were talking about dates and things like that. And I thought to myself, it just came to me out of the blue. I thought to myself, how many people are missing their real connection to spirit as a medium because they are hyper focused on trying to come up with a name, and because even the people who teach this that I've seen do, people from England, people from Lilydale, oh, people are going to come at me, from places, they have not always provided names and dates and and this and that and the other thing. They ended up doing work like I do the work, which is, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I know, this is what's coming through. I don't even give a lot of description anymore. I give a lot of personality traits, how they died. This is all evidence, and it is valid evidence for evidential mediumship. But people get so caught up, and because they can't see it, they can't believe they're going to get it. Because I believe in the process that spirit never lets me down, I can give it, and I stand on it. That's my TED Talk for tonight.
Okay. That was a good one. And so tying that into what we're talking about, it's trusting, it's believing, it's standing within the confidence of that. And so, if there's one thing that I want people just to take away from this conversation or this podcast, is that your higher self is not somewhere else. You can connect within you, whether you see it as a broader aspect of your soul or simply the clearest part of you. It's already in a relationship with you. And the big word that Tara said, that I said, is trust. So don't try to find it. Just learn how to recognize it when you're aligned with it.
Because the more you recognize it, babies, I promise you, the more natural it becomes, like a second nature.
Exactly. And you're not becoming something new. You're remembering how to work with what's already there. So on that note, you want to sign us off?
No, I want to say one more thing. Because.
Oh,
because.
The bunny pen is being flung at me.
Yeah. The bunny pen is saying, hands up. Here's the thing. Your higher self, your soul self, whatever you want to call it, is part of that whole saying, spirit never lets you down. So just trust.
Yes.
And that's it, my friends. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been a wonderful session. Thank you, Nan.
Thank you, Tara.
If you want to follow us on all our platforms. If you felt that this is something that you feel resonated a little deeply, why don't you share it with a few people, see if it resonates with them. And of course, please leave us your comments below. We'd love to answer them. And with that, we bid you farewell. Stay divine.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the wonderfully weird and metaphysical.
If you loved what you heard, don't forget to follow us for more insights and behind the scenes fun.